This National Palliative Care Week, we're visiting Calvary St John's Hospital to speak with Hannah Rotier and Tony Brennan about what palliative care means to them and the work that they're doing. Hey Tony.
G'day.
Thanks for having us.
No worries.
Really appreciate
welcome,
the opportunity.
Welcome to Calvary.
Thanks for your time today, Tony. Really appreciate you coming, allowing us to come in. As a Tasmanian, maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself and sort of how you came into your position.
Thank you. I've been the Director of Mission at Calvary for 8 years. I'm a dad and a grandpa and a teacher by trade. I was in education for a long time, till about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And I'm on the Calvary leadership team as a person who's leading our mission purpose for people and for patients, for staff and for volunteers. And I'm also a songwriter and a poet. I love this community. It's an incredible place, Tasmania. Where we are here, we can see the mountain just above us.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
A bit of songwriting and poetry, you said. That's very interesting. Something you do in your spare time, I take it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of what happens here in the Gibson Ward at St John's that inspires poetry.
Yeah, brilliant.
And music. In fact, we've got a music therapy project. We've got a local artist who died here a few years ago who also wrote a poem in his last days.
Amazing.
And we're getting those paintings framed and the poem as well.
Yeah.
So
brilliant.
poetry and music are always talking to the place.
Yeah, I love how there's a mixture between sort of your personal hobbies and loves and passion outside of here that kind of connect into the organisation and the hospital itself. That's brilliant.
And we had staff orientation this morning. We really impressed upon our staff. We want them to find a passion in the work that they're doing.
Yeah.
Passion for the people that they serve and the people they work with.
Yeah.
It's always about people.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's really lovely to hear. Bit of a different question, but if St John's Calvary was a person, what sort of characteristics would that person have?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. It is. I do feel like it is a person. It's a person with long history, so perhaps a mature age person. There's lots of patients here who are at end stage or fighting cancer perhaps, or they're rehabilitating from an injury, or they're in that late stage and they need a rehab after surgery. So there's quite an older patient, but the place has got a wisdom about it and a friendliness. So the person of St John's would have real connection to other people, be really friendly and accessible and kind.
Yeah, yeah. And I've seen some really brilliant words sort of posted throughout the hospital, like support, love, compassion. Like it's really kind of stated so people feel that when they walk in through the hospital from the front door.
We get that a lot. Yeah, people do feel that, and we get that in patient feedback. They really do feel this is a welcoming place.
Yeah.
They feel, and that's one of our values. Our values are not just on paper, they're really lived out. So hospitality and respect are our values. It's all about healing. So it is certainly a place that's about being for others.
Yeah.
And that's some of our core language too.
Yeah, yeah, and even when we walk through, just this morning, some of the staff are just so friendly, welcoming. Like you get that a sense of a hug when you walk in. Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm sorry I didn't hug you when you walked in.
No, I felt it already.
Yeah.
You've sort of explained yourself a little bit just around like how you've come into the role and sort of where your passion lies and that sort of stuff. But if your team was sort of to describe you as a person, as a colleague, as a friend, how would they describe you?
I hope they would describe me as available,
Yeah.
and I'd really love them to think of me as a good listener.
Yeah.
I think that's really important in leadership too, and particularly when the staff you're supporting and caring for are doing such work for very vulnerable people, sometimes confronting work, challenging work, tough conversations. So I hope that my staff would see me as a person who was a listener, who was about the other, not myself. Sometimes I'll talk last and be happy to hear what they've got to say, and I won't know what they've got to say until I hear them.
Yeah, allowing yourself to sort of have those open conversations. I remember a funny, one time my coach said something really interesting to me for a sport that I used to play, which was your best skill set is availability. Being there for your team, being there for others, being available for whatever that means, whether it's a conversation or a shoulder to lean on or whatever that may look like. And yeah, I can see how that can be such a strong characteristic to have in a leader, especially somewhere like here.
And my working day, it has no routine.
Yeah.
Already today, I've been at both hospitals, and it's only 10 o'clock. So, yeah, being available to go where the need is and where the challenge is.
Yeah.
So this morning, it's not only this interview, it's also meeting staff, brand new staff, and making them feel welcome.
Yeah. Not to get onto the serious stuff, but what does palliative care mean to you?
Like everybody, we don't like to think about the dying process, but I've had loved ones, even in this last year, die. I've given eulogies, I've comforted other people in dying. And so one of the privileges of my work is that I do meet it more often, and then I have to be gentled by it, aware of the need in the other person for kindness, for attentiveness, and just to be with them when they're vulnerable. So what does it mean to me, palliative care? To recognise those who are at the end of life, and I remember Palliative Care Tasmania had a sticker that said, according to recent research, 10 out of 10 people will die. 10 out of 10. Who knew it was that much? So that's an opening for a real conversation about the nature of death and dying. I have just even this week had the privilege to sit with patients and their partners and family and realise, as we talked about what they were doing in terms of their options for dying, there were things they hadn't talked to each other about. And so to actually be able to create the space where they could talk to each other and be the privilege of being able to be present for that.
Yeah.
But essentially palliative care is about palliating. It is about making sure that we do as best we can to make sure there is as least suffering in the process of dying. Because while 10 out of 10 of us are going to do it, there's no need for it to be wretched.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hardship and we're all confronted with it at some stage, and I've accompanied my family with it. But there's the challenge for us to live well, and there's the challenges for us to die well. And I think that is always going to be according to who we are as a person, our values, and all the supports we can get and deserve in our personhood to be cared for as we die. Let's do that for each other. Let's have a society that cares for the dying.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got I wouldn't say a funny motto, because we've got a few great mottos, but one of the consistent theme that sort of pops up for Palliative Care Tasmania is around, it's more than you think. And I think that saying in itself, once you sort of dive into what that means to different people, it sort of expands what the palliative care health means to people and how it actually sort of assist people having conversations around palliative care, because a lot of the time people do think it's end of life, but when you actually break down what palliative care is, it actually has so much more meaning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that sense of how do we help each other to manage pain as well and ill health, and let's accompany each other so that is not that something that we have to do alone.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's be clear as a society about what resources there are for people, and we've got to make sure we do communicate better, because clear is kind. And that holistic treatment of a person, not just their body, like there's somebody in a bed that something's being done to, or in a chair if it's chemotherapy, their spiritual sense, their emotional sense. There could be joy, and there is plenty of joy around Gibson.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you've got a few examples, but do you have any moments that you could sort of reflect on and makes you think about the work that you're doing and how valuable the work you're doing is?
Certainly. I know that the Gibson staff here have a process for whenever anyone has died on the ward, and they do an honour guard, and they come out to everyone, whether it's cleaning staff or a visiting kitchen staff member, and all the nursing staff, social worker, everyone drops tools, comes to the hall, and as the funeral directors process out, there's silence, but there's also the choice of music that the person made, and that could be everything from Led Zeppelin to Bach.
I'm sure there's some funny music
that
gets, or unique, I should say.
Yeah, Born to be Wild, whatever else is on the ward, and full bore. And so there is that celebration of a life that has been connected with the ward, and that's something that's done in full consultation with the family. And so that's a great moment. As I look at the table here, there's a plaque that reminds me of another thing. We had a staff member die on the ward here, and her nickname was the Professor because she was such an experienced palliative care nurse. So it says, Professor Tracy. You haven't gone away, Professor Tracy. You walk beside us every day, unseen, unheard, but always near, still loved, still missed, and very dear. So, I know which room Tracy died. She was in a crazy flirt. I was very early in my job, and I had my guitar with me, and so she got me to sing a few songs for her. And it was almost like a first date. But there's enormous character and joy around the place, enormous resilience. Nursing is a hard profession, and so this was something that's...
It kind of summarises it, doesn't it, a little bit? It's such a great, short, but perfect way to put it.
And the staff come to this table here to have their huddles and meetings, and they'll have a palliative care week celebration in here, morning tea, and Tracy's always here.
Yeah, part of it.
That's it.
Yeah, brilliant.
The Professor.
Yeah. So I know you've told us a little bit about yourself, but how long have you been, I guess, working here, and what was your sort of transition into Calvary? Like, how did that begin, and how has that evolved, I guess, over the time that you've been here?
Yeah, I mean, 8 years in. In one of my first years, my father was actually a patient here. He had a very black sense of humour. I remember he was just in one of these rooms. So there's another sense for staff and for volunteers, and I don't know if you feel it today, but coming into a palliative care ward where people are actively dying and other people are also fighting cancer with chemotherapy, social workers are helping people through the stages of grief, and pastoral carers are sitting with people and working with them about their questions and listening. The place has a kind of reverberation, for me it does. I can remember the conversations with my father. So there's a sense of coming into Calvary and becoming more and more acquainted with the work of palliative care team and nurses, helping them. In this room we've had sort of talking about dying, sort of death cafes, and all those sorts of things, and created the space, or tried to create a space where people were going to be able to break open their questions in their work and how it affects them. But Calvary, which is a large organisation nationally, started by the sisters of the Little Company of Mary in Australia 140 years ago this year.
Oh wow!
It came to Tasmania 85 years ago, and so they've had a long-standing commitment. And when they were at Lena Valley, they had a hospice and care for the dying there, and a passion around this care. Sometimes, as Palliative Care Tasmania knows, it can be a struggle to get the right funding for palliative care.
Absolutely.
It's not a sexy area. It's not a policy triumph always at the top of the recommendations at the election. But we really want to make sure that we keep a strong foot in the work of care for the dying, because it goes right back to the sisters and when they started their work on the streets, that they would be caring for the very vulnerable and the dying. It's our tradition. Yeah. And we won't care if it's not popular or political to do so, or good on the budget. We're going to always try and keep a care focus there. It's our core mission.
How many locations have you got across Tasmania?
4 hospitals, 2 in the north, 2 in the south. They're all heritage sites, so that's a challenge for the facilities team. To keep the tiles on the roof. Calvary Valley was the first hospital. St John's here 25 years ago, and up north 20 years ago, St Luke's and St Vincent's. There's also 2 aged care facilities, so there's care of the dying in those facilities as well.
Are they in the south?
No, they're in the north. There's Riverside Views and Sandhill residential aged care in Launceston, and there's also a statewide, chiefly in Launceston, community care program, does home care. So we're a very integrated, connected program. We try and build a relationship from people, if you like, from womb to tomb.
That's a good term. I've never heard that one before. That's good.
So we certainly have that connection. There's a lot of people who are Calvary babies. You do a survey of any dinner party, you'll find a few Calvary babies. But there's also some people who know someone who's died in Calvary as well, and all the steps between, which is a lot. Whether it's A&E or critical care or a knee surgery or whatever else it is. So many people here at St John's, the kids, it's the leading paediatric hospital in the state for elective ear, nose, throat.
Wow. I didn't know that. It's got a deep connection throughout Tasmania by the sounds of it. Statewide.
It does.
It
does. So Calvary is an iconic hospital healthcare system in Tasmania, and people, when they say Calvary, they tend to think of Lena Valley, and they say Calvary, but they mean St John's, Calvary St John's. Although it's been here since 1899 as a healthcare facility, but we've only been running it since 2000.
Wow. Incredible history.
Yeah.
What keeps you grounded and inspired to, I guess, daily and to be here?
Grandchildren are good. I'm Tony Parr. Environment does. I was showing some people, done some bushwalking, the walls of Jerusalem. Up recently, walking up Cathedral Rock. Spirituality. I'm a Catholic by faith, and so I try to connect every day into the idea the universe is a place that loves us, and that helps me in my connection with people. Try and be worthy of that idea. Poetry and music. So I found out a brand new songwriter on the weekend. He sounds like Bob Dylan or John Lennon. So I'm working out two of his songs and become an immediate fanatic.
Is he Tasmanian or?
No, but I'm very passionate about Tasmanian songwriting.
Artists as well.
I actually talked to John Coleman, who's a great Tasmanian songwriter. Talked to him on Sunday. He's got an art exhibition of paintings. So I've got a good circle of friends of great Tasmanian songwriters. And a couple of years ago, I was running a songwriting night once a month at one of the pubs to try and get some songwriters up and play their stuff. So I'm going to try and do that again if I can.
Staying connected to the community and
the stories poetry is trying to capture experience and give it to somebody else, and music is trying to do that. It's trying to be poetry, but you've got music in addition to the it's not just the words.
There's a rhythm.
There's rhythm and there's a whole lot more going. So they are profound ways to connect with people and to find privileged connection. And you never really know what a poem or song's going to be for the next person. You sort of write them and then you get out of the way and they have their own life. And
I guess like in those two sort of hobbies, you would find a diverse range of people. Like you'd come across some really different people on a daily basis.
Absolutely. They are hobbies, but I try to also get them into the hospital. And no one's told me not to. So I play in the cafes, I play here in Gibson sometimes while people are having their chemotherapy.
Yeah.
They're careful not to knock out any of the. But also poetry. I had a collection we did for a few years, poetry in the hospital, where we had poets write things, and volunteers, and even patients sometimes write poetry that we shared with the patient's breakfast tray. So yeah, there's poetry, and they infuse my work as well.
Yeah, I love that. Brilliant. As I know that you play a bit of guitar, if the Palliative Care Tasmania team had a theme song, what would it be, and who would sing that theme song?
Okay, this is a much more challenging question than you think.
Yeah. Take your time. There is no wrong answers, but
no, there's no wrong answer. No dumb idea in a brainstorm. There's a great Nick Cave song. I'm not going to be able to stop this, by the way.
Yeah. We might have cut the real soon.
It's called "Into My Arms." I don't know if many people know it. It's. I think it's as and there's an Australian I'll recommend. Nick Cave is available. He could be brought to Tasmania to sing "Into My Arms." Into my arms, oh Lord, into my arms. That's right, that's the chorus. Oh Lord, into my arms. And it's essentially, I think it's very much about the stage of, like the conversation I had with a couple the other day, is that the lyric is, I don't believe in an interventionist God, but if I did, I would ask him not to intervene, not to touch a hair of your head. Looking at you, I wonder if that's true. And if I did, I would summon them all together. And so it's the beautiful sort of juxtaposition to say, he says, I'm not sure if I believe in the existence of angels, but looking at you, I wonder if that's true. So it says, so the idea of the paradox.
Yeah.
And that is a really beautiful song, and it's into my arms, oh Lord, into my arms. So it's the idea of holding your loved one too. I think that is a massively important song. Too few people know Into My Arms. Into my arms, oh Lord, into my arms, oh Lord, into my arms, oh Lord, into my arms.
Tell us a little bit about the palliative care team here at Calvary and some of the services that you offer.
Sure. So, fantastic group of clinicians led by Hannah Rotia. Really close relationship with passionate doctors, visiting medical officers who have specialities, whether it's and an allied health team that's got real skill as well. A pastoral care team, which is a unique thing that's part of Calvary that you won't find elsewhere. That's a professional service. So it is a counsellor, if you like, but they're not providing counselling. They're going to attend to what's emerging for the patient in their particular journey, and for that matter, their family sometimes too. So that will be, and then providing them resources. So it might be they're dealing with grief, and it may be nothing to do with dying. It may be the loss of their health, or the loss of their home, and that they're integrating with aged care,
or their function, or
absolutely. So it's the broad definition of a holistic sense. That's very much what pastoral care does. So we have a number of staff. Every day we've got pastoral care team here. We've also got sort of the add-ons. There's things like oncology massage, and that is really a gainful process we have excellent feedback about that service. And we have music therapy. Both of those services have been funded by donations of organisations that serve us, like we've got a group that rejoices in the name of the Order of St Lazarus of Jerusalem, and they've been funding us for years with all sorts of facilities around the place and technology and the particular chairs and other facilities. They're always keen to be collaborating with us to help out. For that matter, we've also got cuddle beds. We've got all sorts of tech around the place to make sure that people are cool enough or warm enough. Because primarily the experience of being a patient is about being a body. in a bed, and you may be dealing with pain or you might be dealing with anxiety.
Yeah.
So we're going to need to listen to who you are as a patient, find out what's servicing for you, and then build our care around that. So that's the focus of our model of care, is to
build out from
that's
there.
right. What's going on for you? And some people have got a different pain threshold, or some people manage anxiety differently, or it might be, as it was for me in an encounter the other day, that I was sitting with a husband and a wife. It was, the fact that they just really needed someone to listen to their conversation. So they had a reason to have the conversation.
Just to be present.
Because otherwise it was awkward to have it.
Yeah.
So here was someone who created a space for them to talk to each other.
Yeah, brilliant.
Absolutely. And so that's what pastoral care does. It really is about a care that is creating space for people who are vulnerable to be themselves. And the welcome is for everyone. So people of all faiths, people of all stages in life. There's all sorts of people who have come through the ward, who are welcome on the ward, who come in and out of the service. And it's a hybrid service, so it's quite unique in that sense. It's oncology and end-of-life care. But we make that work by deeply attending to, as you say, the patient at the centre, and what their need is. So,
and the other, I guess this is all kind of speaking about the environment that you're creating, but even just walking through the hospital and seeing the beautiful gardens and the landscape, it is comforting.
Absolutely, and we have a chapel here that's available as a quiet space. The gardens are always available to people, fantastic for if a family's visiting, the kids break out into the space, chase the birds around. We have what's called the Mary Potter Room, and the Mary Potter was the founder of the Sisters. So that room has been provided just as a quiet space. It might be a person gets some particular advice from a dietitian or a social worker in that space, or a pastoral carer. It could be that they're meeting with someone helping them in terms of hair loss and wigs or bandanas.
It's safe.
Safe space.
Yeah, it's safe.
And it's great to call it Mary Potter Room, because the sisters were always so focused on the dying. It's the core of their idea of what Calvary is. If you like, the cross of Calvary and the women at the foot of the cross, and there you are being with the person who is suffering. That's the beginning of their whole idea. So Mary Potter Room is a place where so many thousands of conversations happen.
Beautiful. How does Calvary and Palliative Care's partnership sort of work in operation?
Yeah, Palliative Care Tasmania have been a great ally for Calvary, and when we sit down and talk to the CEO and her team, I'm often thinking there's so much more we could do. Yeah. But certainly Palliative Care Tasmania have been, they've drawn us and consulted us in terms of how they are looking at the global settings for Tasmania, what's going on demographically, what the needs are. And as we've tried to broker this space, advocate for this space, and imagine new potential like hospice care, they have been someone we've been able to consult. We know that they have the ear of government. We know that they can cut through to public imagination in a way that we can't always do. So they are a great advocate for very vulnerable people. They're a natural ally for us.
Yeah, and a lot of the work that we do, we have such like when we're speaking to community or health professionals, we have such great feedback around Calvary as well, and the work that your team does, and it's always so refreshing when we come in here. And I mean, National Palliative Care Weeks is always a nice refreshing moment, because we get to sit down with the team, and I know that they're very time poor and resource poor, so to have 30 minutes of their time and just to sit down and have an open conversation, not necessarily about work, but just about life in general, it's always nice to reconnect.
Absolutely. Yeah. And in real terms, the economics of healthcare in Australia are in a difficult time, particularly private health. We see across the country a phase of hospitals closing, and Hobart has experienced that as well. So when the community looks, it's not just election time, at what the needs are for Tasmanians, Palliative Care Tasmania and Calvary will want to make sure that we keep their attention to the fact that while it may not be the top of the political policy list, how we are when we die, and all the policy settings around supporting people with dignified care that focuses on them as people and their loved ones. That's really where we want the imagination to go. We've had policy debates in Tasmania in recent years where people are, assisted to die. We see real dangers around vulnerable people being at risk in that setting. At the same time, so little attention gets to palliative care as the broader holistic capture-all care. So Calvary on its website has something to say about those programs. We support people with their choices and care for them, and they're always at the centre of what we do. But gee whiz, as a community, Palliative Care Tasmania is certainly one of the few voices that are saying, can we please give some more attention to the tens of thousands of Tasmanians every year who won't use a service like assisted dying, and they're going to die and need support, need resources to be richer and better spread. So Calvary's a serious ally with Palliative Care Tasmania.
Yeah, supporting quality of life in that throughout the whole journey, I think, is something that we both advocate and strive for in every Tasmanian. And I think it's a good indicator as well as a state how we're doing health-wise, is how people are dying. I think that's a really good mark for us to know, are we moving in the right direction?
Yeah, people are getting older and people are getting more acutely needy in their last phases of living, particularly in the aged care setting. Aged care is changed dramatically, and we need to be nimble with that as a society.
And pivot with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. As we walked through this morning, we saw you say hello to a few volunteers as we're coming through. Tell us a bit more about them and their role here and what they sort of do.
Absolutely. Well, the sisters call their order the Little Company of Mary, but they always had a lot of help, and they always had a lot of volunteers, right? And they called those people, including people who worked with them or donated to them, the Greater Company. So this great company includes 80 volunteers in southern Tasmania, another 20 in the north of Tasmania, and we are looking for more recruits. There's a small group, probably about 5 or 6, who come in and out of Gibson and do different things, whether it's administrative or it's actually wiping down benches and things like that staff don't get to, or whether it's there's a whole lot of a network of people who provide things like quilts and rugs. There's the Bruny Island so-and-sos, they call themselves, who every year donate a whole lot of quilts and
amazing
pillow covers and things like that. Yeah, it's a lot of love from a large group of people that support.
Yeah. But in any way that they possibly can, in their passion.
So that what they give is their time and the gift of their skill.
Yeah.
So they are generous in that gift, and we're very grateful.
Yeah, and some of the work that we've done, some of the statistics that come around about the work that volunteers do in the sector wouldn't be able to operate the way that we do without them. Like the amount of work and passion and time and resources that they put into their work and their, I guess, giving time, it's impossible to do what the sector does in Tasmania without them.
Absolutely. No, we see that here in real every day.
Yeah. So as part of National Palliative Care Week, Palliative Care Tasmania is running a campaign around having an awkward conversation. And some of the community work that we have done in recognising that campaign is we realise that sometimes people don't want to have that awkward conversation. Why do you think that is?
I think as human beings, we are deeply sensitive. We try to seem tough, have strong boundaries, have our walls and masks up, but actually we are quite soft under the belly. So there's challenges about being emotional, particularly for blokes. I'm always interested to try and scratch at that space because in the songwriting poetry it's necessary. I think that's where the juice is. That's where some of the richness of our humanity is when we can be totally honest with each other and even emotional. So the fact that dying is something that we struggle with. I'll give you an example. My family had an auntie who died recently. She had Down syndrome. She got to a good age. My family had always been part of our strong family resistance around her to make sure that no one mistreated her. because she had a disability, and the statistics for care of people with intellectual and physical disabilities is not great in our society either. So we had this strong grid around her protection, but when it came to talk about the fact that she could actively dying, it became very hard for the family to accept that. And that, you know, what are people doing if they're caring for her as she's starting to get to end stage? So we got the assistance of people in the palliative care industry and specialist palliative care unit, fantastic people who work closely with Palliative Care Tasmania as well. And we had an awkward conversation.
Yeah.
I'm the oldest of 8, so my family, any conversation can be awkward.
Yep.
Yeah, with, you know, certainly politics.
Yeah.
And so we got them all in the room, and or 7 in the room and 1 on the phone, and we broke the conversation open, it was the case that we thought she had perhaps years or months, but certainly it started to look more like weeks or days, and breaking that through and talking about what sort of pain medications we'll be talking to and the syringe driver and all these sorts of technical issues. That was awkward. And I wasn't always very sensitive, because I cracked jokes towards the end about let's all get our advanced care directive written and decide what songs we want at our funeral. And, you know, not everyone was in the same place as me, but I think there is necessary to create those conversations, and we sometimes need people with some skill to assist us with the conversation. At the heart of it is truth. We're going to die.
Yeah.
And we don't want it to be true. We don't want our loved ones to die. The idea is unfathomable sometimes, but it is a better, healthier way to be, to look each other in the eye as family and as friends and say, yeah, I care about you now, and I'll care about you then, and let's talk about it, awkward though it may be. And
having those conversations earlier, more frequently, they become less, not as you're less vulnerable, but the conversations become a bit more acceptable, having them more consistently.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we've noticed, we've had a few community sessions where the first time you go into the community, the walls are up. People don't want to have that conversation because they don't want to have that conversation yet. They're not ready for it.
No.
But the more work that you do, the more conversations that you have around death and dying, around palliative care journey, around what palliative care is, how you might want to die, how you might want your last 12, 1 year, 2 years to be, that sort of allows people to not imagine themselves in that scenario, but sort of start to plan that out, and it becomes a lot easier to do that with your friends, family.
Other cultures are much better at it than we are, so we know we can do it better. So there's a particular part of our history that's, you know, shut down this as a conversation. But the more PCT, Palliative Care Tasmania does, and all of us do to break that conversation, make it a normal conversation. That's the healthy thing to do. I have a poem I wrote, which actually has that title I mentioned earlier of 10 out of 10 researchers confirm that we will all die. That's the name of the poem. And the poem actually is my script for the things I want to happen at my funeral.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah, so that's, you know, we've got to find ways to do this.
Yeah, and there's different ways to have those conversations, and different ways you can state what you want, and that's a really great example of doing that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
With National Palliative Care Week coming up, what does National Palliative Care Week mean to you, and why do you think it matters?
National Palliative Care Week is an opportunity for us to be a community that can talk about dying, a community that can make sure that the vulnerable amongst us, and really all of us, are able to think about, well, what's my future? How will I make it comfortable for myself and for my loved ones? What do I need to do about advanced care directive? What songs and poems do I want read at my funeral? And we've got to make it as normal as possible for everyone to feel comfortable.
Thank you, Tony. That's really great to hear those words about National Palliative Care Week, and just thank you again for your time today. It's been really great to sort of pick your brain a little bit around palliative care and Gibson and Calvary as a whole, and really looking forward to working Palliative Care Tasmania to continue to working with you and the team.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Tony, for your time today. Just before you leave, I just want to give you a few things The first being the Tasmanian Palliative Care Community Charter, which we're actually launching as part of National Palliative Care Week. This charter reflects the shared vision for compassionate, high-quality palliative care in Tasmania, and it's really the community's voice. So I'd love to give you those posters there. Feel free to spread them throughout your hospitals here.
Fantastic.
That's the first piece, and just to follow up that, we've got some really great A4 brochures and postcards that you can feel to give out to the community as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you again.
Thanks, Luke.